Welcome, welcome. You are all jerks. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time you're watching this video. Today, I had a suggestion to follow up the series that I have been doing, which is reacting to terrible reviews for a movie that I happen to enjoy. And a user by the name of Jake Tilton, shout out there, Jake, gave me the idea of, hey, you should do this with Joker Folie Deux. Now, to any of you guys that may be new to my channel and didn't know that I liked Joker Folie Deux, I did. I did quite a bit. And, I caught my fair share of criticism for it, just as anybody that liked the movie did. So I thought, that's a really good idea because I'm sure the terrible reviews for Joker Folie Deux are going to be plentiful. Like, I'm not going to struggle to find bad reviews for Joker 2. So pull up a chair, enjoy. Let's get right into it. Why even wait? Why would I edge you any longer? Let's just get right into this bad boy. So again, we are on Rotten Tomatoes here and starting off strong, as you can see, a 32% by users. Yikes. I have actually, even with the critics, I can tell you guys, I have not looked up reviews for Joker Folie Deux. So this is all new. I mean, I know that the reviews were terrible. I'm not surprised by that. So let's get right into it. I'm excited. I'm going to try. See, I'm going to try not to defend this movie too much, but I'm inherently going to. So our first review is from Liz L. Right at the top, the very first one is a half-star review and says, half a star is too much. Musical? Dudes, after waiting for so long, talk about blue balls, girl. Gaga should not produce. Egocentric much? Ugh, disgusting and a shame, man. I give it 5 turds. Okay. I actually didn't know that Gaga was a producer on this. And if she is, good for her. Get that bag, sister. Wow. It seems like the biggest problem here is that it was a musical. Even then, I feel like that is super overplayed. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like when people called this a musical, even Todd Phillips, and then you watch the movie, you're kind of like, I mean, yeah, but not really. I mean, I guess it technically meets the criteria of a musical, guys. Come on, don't chastise me. But I definitely feel like the word musical does a lot of work here. Next review is from Carrie R. Gives it a half star and says, too much of a musical and not enough chaos. It was very slow. Didn't add much to the storyline. I mean, so if you want to say that there wasn't enough chaos, I agree. This was definitely not the follow-up that a lot of people thought they were getting after Joker. And that was the big problem with this movie for a lot of viewers, was that, I thought I was getting the origin story of Arthur Fleck, the origin story of the Clown Prince of Crime. And then this movie kind of goes off the rails and was not that at all. And so, yeah, that's fair. That's definitely a fair criticism. But I don't think the movie was trying to do that. I think Todd Phillips set that up. But I digress. That's just me. Again. Anon shit poster, half star. Atrocious musical. Okay, so is it that you hated that it was a musical, or you thought the musical aspects were bad? I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say it's both. I'm just going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume that you do not lack critical thinking. It might bite me in the ass. All right, a half-star review from Charles B. For the musical lover, this might be worth it. But to me, it was an unwelcome distraction. Given this is a Joker movie, if the singing parts were done as a mockery, think Deadpool, then it would have been better. But there was none of that. It was like a Disney musical, but in a Batman Joker story. Okay, so this is one of those reviews I am going to take a little bit of umbrage with, simply just because. So the first thing is, if the musical would have been more in a mockery kind of tone, mockery kind of way, if it was painted in that light, you would have liked it. I mean, I get what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying. However, I don't think that would have worked tonally. Furthermore, I think that the way the musical aspects of this movie are handled is that it's a representation visually, and I guess audibly, of their shared psychosis. You know, a lot of these, I think pretty much every musical number, I have to watch it again. I only saw it when it came out in theaters, but it's like all in their head. Like none of it's actually happening. We're not having these gigantic courtroom musical numbers that are actually taking place. No, it's two insane people, insane in different ways for different reasons, kind of like acting that out in their head. So I think it actually works in that way. And that's what I thought initially when Todd Phillips had said this movie was going to be a musical. I was like, well, that could really work because you've got two nut jobs. So, and I thought it did, but, and then let's see. And then a Batman Joker story. This has nothing to do with Batman. Nothing to do with Batman, like at all. It's just neither movie has. I mean, I guess if you're like, oh, well, they had that scene with Bruce. Come on, that was just fanfare. Okay, Walter F gives it 1 star and says, it's a musical. Super boring and doesn't seem to relate to the series or the character in any way. What a horrible movie. Well, I'm going to give you this, Walter. You're right. It doesn't relate to the series. I guess you're talking about like the comic book property writ large or the character in any way. You're absolutely right, because that was the point. And that is the reason why so many people had a lot of issues with this movie, because Todd Phillips did not want to do that. And a lot of people said, well, too bad. That's the kind of framework you're working in. You know, this is a DC Comics story. You should be working with that in mind. And I guess he was for the most part in the first one, but this wasn't supposed to be that. But I mean, that is fair. That is fair, Walter. I'm going to give you some credit. That is fair. Okay. Let's see. Glinda, like from Seed of Chucky, gives it 1.5 stars and says, wasn't too amused with how it was more of like a musical with people singing. Okay. Damn. I will say the trailers definitely underplayed that, and that is just not cool. They should not have underplayed that. Like, this is clearly going to have musical numbers in it. I knew that going in. I feel like more people should have known that. I think it would have actually been somewhat better received. It would not have been some smash hit had people known, but might have done a little bit better. Letta S gives it a 0.5 star and says, what a disappointment. I couldn't wait until the second one came out. It doesn't hold a candle to the first one. See, I'm of two minds here. One, it is so tonally different than the first movie that I love it for that. And two, I don't know which one I like more. And that's difficult because I loved Joker. I would probably still say Joker. I really would, guys. So don't come at me here. But yeah. Olivia G gives it 1 star. Says, this is so ass. Watch the lure. No idea what that is, but all right. This is ass. Giselle G gives it 1 star and says, Joaquin Phoenix was great and would have been better with a better writer and without that Gaga. She is such a horrible singer actress. All right. So listen up. The last sentence is just this person shitting on Gaga. I totally disagree. I think anybody that says that Lady Gaga is a bad singer, you just don't have ears. She has an incredible voice, whether you like her music or not. She is a talented vocalist. That is just a fact. Facts don't care about your feelings, right? I mean, that's just absurd. That is an absurd take. Furthermore, I actually think she's been good in everything I've seen her in as an actress. I didn't see House of Gucci. I heard that movie was mostly a mess, but there were some good performances in it. So I would still like to see it, if not just for her and Adam Driver. I think Adam Driver's in that movie. Or am I wrong? No, it's Jared Leto. Is Adam Driver in that movie? Might be Jared Leto I'm thinking of. Jared Leto has all the makeup, whatever. Anyway, but I loved her in American Horror Story Hotel. I thought she was great as the Countess. She's really good in A Star is Born. A Star is Born is not a movie that I rushed out to see. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I mean, it worked. It did what it needed to do. Not a movie that I'm going to ever really go back and rewatch, but I thought she was really good in it. And here, I think she's really good too. Now, if you have issues with like the writing, that's different. The dialogue she's given, that's different. But I think she did a good job. I don't know. David C gives it a half a star and said, how did this movie get a green light from Warner Brothers? $1.1 billion. That's how, David C. After the success of Joker, okay, you just asked the question that you just answered in the next sentence. What the hell? Todd Phillips' best idea was a lukewarm musical. Just so Lady Gaga could sing Harley Quinn, I want the 2 hours of my life back I wasted on this. You're me. I mean, come on. Like, we all haven't wasted, quote unquote, 2 hours on a movie that we hated before. Cry about it. Too much of a musical for my taste. Wow, I'm shocked. Okay. Myron D gives it a half star and says, incredibly boring. This could not be further from the entertainment value of the first film. I was highly disappointed in every sense. I'm going to counter that with something, Myron. Hear me out here, guys. I think that this movie is actually more entertaining than the first film, whether you liked it more or not. And what I mean by that is the first film is really a character study. It's very slow, very slow. With the breaks in this movie of musical numbers and just imagined chaos at times in Arthur's head, it brings more vitality to certain scenes in this movie. There's more moments of levity in this film than there were in the first one. The first one is, like I said, technically, I think just an overall better film for sure. But I definitely think this one's more entertaining. And even if you would square that as, oh, more entertaining in a terrible kind of way, oh, sure, whatever, you have at it. But I definitely think this one's more entertaining. There's more going on here. But what do I know? I love terrible movies. Apparently, that's what YouTube tells me. Okay. Ben B gives it a half star and says, Folie à Dieu, more like Folie à douchebag. That's not even funny. Todd Phillips had an interesting film up until the closing arguments of the court case. Then he did the Joker's character very wrong and took it in the direction of something weaker than a 1966 Batman expendable Joker henchman. The real crime, how Todd Phillips ignored virtually all material about the DC Clown Prince in the last hour of the film. Hey, Ben, guess what, buddy? I'm going to hit you with something that you might not know about. Todd Phillips ignored virtually everything about the Clown Prince of Crime in the first movie. This is not the Clown Prince of Crime. It never was. This is Arthur Fleck, okay? Very, very different. And the idea of Folie à Dieu, and even in retrospect, go back to that first movie, is that Arthur Fleck is just kind of crazy and uses the Joker persona as a way to hide behind some of the terrible shit he's done. The Joker is a mask. The Joker is a title put upon him by people that look up to him. But in reality, he's just a sad, lonely, mentally ill person. And he was that in the first movie too. So, I don't know, buddy. I think you weren't paying much attention in that first movie either. Caleb N gives it a half star and says, the Joker who never met Batman. Odd choice to do a film and leave out the character who is the sole reason for the popularity of your lead. Okay, so this is weird because, like, you could have made the same argument with the first movie. So I'm assuming, Caleb, that you also had the exact same complaint and rating for the first movie because you're not pointing out the musical here. You're not pointing out Gaga. No, you were simply complaining that it didn't have Batman in it. To which I would say, what did you expect? This is DC Elseworlds. It's Elseworlds, guys. The current iteration of Batman is in modern day. The first Joker took place in the 70s, and this sequel is in the 80s. How you gonna? I mean, come on. And how many live action Batmans do we need running around at the same time? You know, that's not confusing. DC already doesn't have enough problems as it is, right? Come on now. Come on, Caleb. Shout out to not complaining about the musical, though. Harry H. gives it a half star and says, too bad 0 stars is not an option. This has to be one of the worst films I have ever watched. Do not waste your time. Followed up by David F. with 1 star says, why did they even bother? You know, with those kind of reviews, what do you say? What do you say? Clearly, it didn't work. It didn't work for them. But like I said to one of the previous people, why'd they bother? $1.1 billion. That's why they bothered. Michael R. gives it 1 star and says, I want my 2 hours back. I'm glad I watched on Max because halfway through the movie, I found myself skipping through all the singing, hoping for an advancement of the storyline or some action or something to grasp onto other than court TV. Not even the interesting kind. I would have walked out of the theater. Okay. How do I put this? Why do so many people say this movie didn't advance the story of the first movie? Yes, it did. Okay. Arthur got arrested. He killed someone on live TV. Like, how did this not continue that story? He went to prison and now he's on trial. Yes, it is continuing that story. Did it continue the story in the way you may have hoped for or with the ideas of, grandeur that you had in your head? Maybe not. Maybe not. And that's fair to say. But to say this doesn't continue the story of the first movie, that's wild. That's wild. Keith D gives it a half star and says, I usually don't write reviews. Movies are movies. Just entertainment. Period. But this, I felt I had to warn people to not completely waste 2 hours of your life. It was pointless and boring. I had to physically force myself to finish, hoping it would get better. It didn't. So glad I didn't pay to see this junk in the theater. Lady Gaga was the only saving grace of this shit show. Okay. You know what? Golf clap for you, Keith. You shouted out Lady Gaga. Even as someone that hated this movie, you can be objective and go, well, she was good in the movie, because she is. Oh, buddy. Camilo S. gives it a half star and says, what in the musical hell was that? Oh, God, the fucking musical complaints. How can a franchise be killed like this just so Lady Gaga gets a ride in the superheroes roller coaster? Sad. Well, Joker's not a superhero movie. Joker Folie, Deux is definitely not a superhero movie. I don't think it had anything. Do you think Gaga went to Todd Phillips and was like, you should make a sequel to Joker and you should put me in there as Harley Quinn? No. God, no. All it takes is a quick Google search to see how she got involved with this. It was Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix that got her involved. Come on. At least know what you're talking about before you write your fucking brain dead review. Is that too much to ask? I don't need you to like the movie. God, no. Hate it for all I care. I don't care. And that's the one thing I'll give a lot of actual critics credit for, is that they do know what they're talking about before they just rail against a movie. So 5 stars by an Anon shitposter, a brilliant movie about a sad criminal. His sole problem, they called him the Joker. Hey, shout out. Totally shout out to you. That is all the expectations versus reality argument there. And that, I think, is why Folie Deux was so shit on. Because at its core, stripping it down bare bones, what you just said is precisely the case. So shout out to you. Stephen T gives it a half star and says, as someone who absolutely loves the Joker, this film is horrible. It was so poorly written. It's sad. The first one was okay at best, but this one was absolutely pathetic. To which I would say, Stephen, how is it poorly written? But I'll give you credit, and I won't argue with you because you didn't like the first one either. So, okay. CT gives it a half star and says, over 2 hours of my life that I'll never get back. Who writes this crap? About a quarter of the way through, if I started fast forwarding to see if there was anything worth watching, or I started fast forwarding. Spoiler alert, there wasn't. I don't know. I think it's funny when he has that cartoon hammer and he hits the judge. That's kind of funny. James M gives it a half star and says, super disappointing. The first movie was just fantastic, and the sequel is absolutely atrocious. Some rocket scientist, I guess, thought it would be cool to turn a crazed, murdering clown into a musical. Really? WTF. Total F for me. I don't even know what to say to that. I'm sorry that it hurt you. Leslie W, half star. This sucked on so many levels. It made 0 sense. Singing was horrible, and I'm a Gaga fan. Had to turn it off. Please do not make another one. Well, guess what? They're not. And they actually were never going to, no matter how this movie performed. So at least you don't have to subject yourself to a third Todd Phillips Joker film. But guess what? Some men just like to watch the world burn. And I'm one of those men. I would welcome a third film, if for nothing else, to just see people's heads melt. Seriously. All right. Constipated C gives it a half star. No clue how much critics are paid to say this is a masterpiece, but maybe I should nod and agree and get paid too. I honestly can't bring myself to say it was good. Literally fell into a coma watching this bore fest. Nowhere near the contrast of the first movie. Total waste of talent and money. What critics called this a masterpiece? I don't know if you noticed this, Constipated, before you wrote your Rotten Tomatoes review. It actually has a lower critic score. Yeah. So I'm sure there's a critic or two that said it was, but like the general sentiment of this movie was, yeah, no thanks. Erica W gave it a half star and said, terrible movie. Was very bored throughout. It was hard to even watch. Don't mind all the music, but the plot was dumb. Terrible sequel. Would not watch again. And if they make another, probably wouldn't watch that either. Well, as I said just a minute ago, Erica, don't worry. They're never going to make another one. So you don't have to suffer for 2 more hours. I'm going to start a campaign now. Like, I'm going to go to Todd Phillips' house and I'm going to be like, Todd, you got to do this. You got to do a third Joker. Sean gives it 1 star and says, what the fuck did I just watch? That's entertainment. That's what I called it, at least. Okay. Jonathan J. It just totally sucked. Seriously. Okay. Hey, man. Look, I think I'm fair with these, because I'm the one in pain when I read some of these because, like, it's movies that I like. But yeah. Hylan S gives it a half star and says, worst film of the year for me. Angry, my Fandango movie review won't allow me to give this less than half a star. Well, I promise you, Tylen, it is not helping the overall score of the movie. I promise. Another Anon shit poster gives it a half star review and said, this movie is so bad and out of touch with the target audience that they said New York instead of Gotham in one of the courtroom scenes. Actually, that was confirmation that Gotham is in the state of New York. That's all that was. Actually, a lot of people actually thought that was cool because the belief has always been that Gotham is like neighboring New York City. It's got to be in New York. This movie basically called that out. Yeah, Gotham is in New York. Charles W gives it a half star and says, I expected so much more from Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. I don't want to see a musical. I want to see the Joker. Terrible storyline. Boring. So your main complaint was a musical. Guys, I don't know. Is it? I hope none of these people went to see Wicked. And I didn't see Wicked. I can't speak to the quality of that film or lack thereof. But a lot of these people are just complaining that it was a musical. And inherently, like, a musical's just being inherently not good, I feel like is not fair at all. There's some musicals that I love throughout my childhood, especially. Grease is probably it's probably in my top 15 movies of all time. And that movie is as musical as a musical gets. So just because a movie is a musical doesn't mean it is inherently a weaker film. Gonzalo gives it 1 star and says, stupid disappointment. All right. Mel gives it a half a star and said, no one told me it was a musical. I am gonna give you a little bit of leeway with your review because I'm gonna say, yeah, Warner Brothers, you kind of missed the boat on that. There's some stuff in the trailers that would make you believe that there's gonna be, like, maybe, and Todd Phillips did say that to his credit, but they didn't market it that way. Tim F gives it a half star and says, terrible movie. Would have given it 0 stars if that was an option. If you like unentertaining musicals, this movie is for you. That's 2 hours and 18 minutes I'll never get back. 2 hours and 18 minutes you gave to Todd Phillips and Warner Brothers. Also, to anybody that's like, yeah, I skipped out on seeing it in the theaters because I'm not going to support this piece of shit. You're still giving Warner Brothers money when you watch this on Max. Okay? You are. Anon shit poster gives it 1 star. 1 question. How did this script pass the garbage can? They could have easily done this movie as a 30-minute TV special by getting rid of all the pointless song and dance. All right. Just another complaint about the music. James R, 1 star. Quite possibly the worst movie that I've ever seen. I loved Joker, but the musical was terrible. Again, I cannot take reviews like that seriously, because if your entire reason for not liking the movie is because it's a musical, so therefore it lacks any credibility, there's no merit to it whatsoever, I can't get behind that. It's a closed-minded way of thinking. Won't do it. Fred M gives it 1 star and says, Joker was fresh, inventive, and disturbing. The sequel is just plain terrible. Singing is okay, but the story is a mess. Seems like Phoenix wanted to ensure to never play that part again, and he gets his wish, and so does the audience. May it rest in peace. For all these complaints about the story, I'm just curious about like what about the story, and somebody in the comment section, if you're someone that also hated the story in this movie, what about the story doesn't make sense? Like, what about the story do you feel like is like, oh, that just doesn't square up? You know, that's square peg, round hole type of deal. If it's that it's not the story that you wanted or that you hoped for, that's fair. But how does it not make sense? Like, I would push people on that, because I'm just like, I don't see that. Marco B gives it 1 star. Where is the Folie? I expected more from the movie, even in terms of quality as a musical. That's weird. Folie translates to, was that like shared or madness? Oh, yeah, maybe. Thomas J, 1 star. This film failed in every essence of the Joker franchise. It's not a franchise. Jeff J, truly terrible. The comics offered so many great storylines to choose from as a follow-up to the Joker, and a horribly acted musical was the best you could offer. Okay. We're not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. It's not horribly acted at all. At all. Guys, I'm a film connoisseur. A lot of you watching this are film connoisseurs. That it's just who we are. This is our wheelhouse. We have to be honest every now and then and be like, there are objective truths in life. And to say that Joker Folie à Deux is a terribly acted movie, that is just objectively false. Chris G, we'll read this one, gives it a 0.5 star. While this version of the Joker is interesting, the story itself is lacking that funny, violent flavor that the Joker is known for. As for the addition of Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn, it compounded the lackluster shortcomings and sucked the energy out of the film to the point that you no longer feel or believe that it was the Joker or Harley Quinn. Because it wasn't. That's the point of the movie. Oh my God. You know that meme is where it's like you and like the point, like, oh, so many people, the point is just going boo, right over them. We'll read these last 2 and then we'll wrap it up. Wilson Ray gives it a 0.5 star and says, absolutely hated this movie. I didn't know this was a musical. Songs had the same vibes of grief and wanting more. Was very tempted to leave the movie theater halfway through. And honestly, I really should have left. Ending sucked as well. Oh, they posted that review on my 30th birthday. Happy birthday to me. Jack G gives it 1 star and says, musical movie for non-musical audience. All right. Well, what did we learn? What we learned today is that it is absolutely no surprise that Joker Folie à Deux is one of the most hated movies of 2024 by most people that watch films. It is also simultaneously one of the most misunderstood movies of 2024, whether you liked it or not. Again, as I said, as film connoisseurs, we all have to admit that there are undeniable truths. There are objective truths when it comes to film. And in a lot of films, there's always merit there. And Joker Folie à Deux is a movie that absolutely has good performances. It looks great. The money is there. The care is there. It's just not what a lot of people expected nor wanted. And they don't feel like it made a whole lot of sense to go in that direction. And that's totally fair. But for a lot of the reviews that I read tonight and a lot of the reviews that I had seen, you know, in instant reactions the weekend this movie came out, and just some of the comments I got in my videos about the movie, it always kind of dumbfounded me, because it was almost as if people were missing the point. See, a lot of people got sucked in with Joker thinking that this truly was the origin story for the Joker, the clown prince of crime. This was going to be his origin story. And, you know, what? Is he going to be the DCU's Joker moving forward? No, it was never that. And I feel like if you go back and watch Joker, especially after watching Folie à Deux, you can actually see a lot of these seeds being planted. That Arthur Fleck was never the Joker. He was called Joker by people, but Joker was really a state of mind. It was a symbol. It was a mask. It wasn't him. He latched onto it because he was a sad reality of what society does to those that they leave behind. You know, they leave them broken, beaten, and scarred. They feel like nobody cares about them. Nobody's there. And as soon as someone or something gives their life meaning, it becomes their entire personality. And that's what Joker Folie do kind of follows up a lot of those things from the first movie. And as far as Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn, she's not. She is, in a technical sense, Harley Quinzel, like technically, but she just loved the Joker persona. She didn't love Arthur. And that's actually a sad reality. And it's a common theme throughout this movie is that at the end of the day, just like in the first movie where he was left alone and nobody cared, it's still that way in Folie Deux. And that's how the movie ends too. Literally in that way. Left alone. Nobody cares. They love the chaos. They loved having an avatar for their anger. They didn't love him. They didn't see him. Nobody ever saw him or gave a shit about him. And it's sad. It sucks in a lot of ways that is just the way it is, but that is just the way it is. And for a lot of comic book fans, that's not what they wanted to see. And while I can totally understand that and sympathize with that, I saw these seeds planted back in 2019 when Joker came out. So this wasn't a huge shock to me. But again, I understand why it was so jarring to so many people, and I'm never going to tell you you're wrong for not liking it. But as I've said many times when talking about movies like this that are so controversial, again, I do feel like there are objective truths in life, and sometimes we have to at least be able to agree on some of those things. But I don't know. You guys tell me down below in the comments section. What did you think of Joker Folie Deux? Have you watched it again? Have you yet to watch it because of all the bad stuff you heard about it? Did you love it when you first saw it and still love it? Did you hate it and you plan on never watching this piece of shit again? Whatever it is, I want to hear down below in the comments section. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, please leave a like on it. It helps in the algorithm. Help your boy. We are right there to 7K. We are right there to 7K subs. I want to get to 7K subs by the end of the week. And the only way to do that is with your guys' help. So thank you so much for watching. Again, share it, like it, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. I love y'all. I love Joker Folie Deux. I'm peacing out because I feel like people are about to start throwing shit at